so much for being here. And I want to especially thank our two esteemed guests. I would love to introduce our speaker, Xinru Liu, who is Professor Emeritus of Early Indian History and World History at the College of New Jersey, affiliated faculty of the South Asia Center here at the University of Pennsylvania, and honorary visiting professor at the Institute of World History at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Professor Liu taught herself English and history and got her PhD in 1985 from the University of Pennsylvania here. Her revised dissertation, Ancient India and Ancient China, Trade and Religious Exchanges, won the award for outstanding research works done between 1977 and 1991 from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. And although she has a wide variety of interests, she is especially well known for her groundbreaking work on the history of the Silk Road. Her most recent work is Dionysius and Drama in the Buddhist Art of Gandhara, published in the Journal of Global History. Joining us to lead the discussion after Professor Liu's presentation is Deven M. Patel. Deven is a Sanskrit scholar, translator, and critic. His monograph text to tradition, the Nazhad Hikarata and Literary Community in South Asia, in 2014, is a landmark study of one of Sanskrit literature's canonical literary works, viewed through the lens of 8 centuries of critical reception. He has also published on hermeneutics and translation practices, linguistics, and poetics in ancient and medieval India. Current areas of research and translation include multilingualism in India, modern Sanskrit literature, intersections of visual literary cultures, and the genre of anthology. Currently, Deven is Director of Undergraduate Studies in Comparative Literature here at Penn. He holds an appointment as Associate Professor of Sanskrit and Classical Indian Literature, and he lectures on ancient epics, critical theory, mythology, and Indian philosophy, which is how I met him. So without further ado.
Hi.
Yeah.
So let's start?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So today I'm talking about language and art. I have been interested in the language problems when studied the ancient Silk Road. I sort of organized, edited a big book, the World of Ancient Silk Road. Then in this process, I realized, and in my real life, I also realized the language is such a barrier for people's communication. You go to a place, you don't know the language, it's really, really hard. And so I imagine in the ancient world, when we talk about the people move here, move there, it's not that easy if they don't understand the language. So I try to figure out, and I learned like Buddhist monks in ancient time. I look at their biographies. Many of them, outstanding ones, knew many languages. And this is amazing feat, which distinguish them from other missionaries of other religions. So let's see the first, the Kushan. The Kushans, this is the map, I just get it. It's about the trade, where produce what, but I just use this map as a basic outline of the Kushan territory. There is no way to say this is accurate because there is no way to make sure where the Kushan's borders are. But in some way, we can be sure this is a core region of the Kushan Empire. And sometimes they extend all the way to the Middle Ganges. And here, the Central Asia is where they came from. And they settled here across the Hindu Kush, go to India. But when they were eventually crushed by the Sasanian Persian Empire, they again retreated. They left a lot of legacy in this area. But who were they? That's a lot of questions. And I have to reduce you guys to make this the yeah, well, according to the Chinese literature, a polity from the steppe took control of an agrarian society, which is the Chinese chronicles say the great Yuezhi people migrate all the way westward on the steppe. They crossed the Amud area where there were 5 Xihou in Chinese, but Yabgu in the steppe language, in Daxia, which is actually Daha or Tuhara. There are 5 of those small chiefs called Xiumi, Shuangmi, Guishuang, which is the name for Kushan, Xidun, and Dumi. So that's the original. Japanese scholar Koyama, he made a very important point. He said that the Xihou should be the chief of a conquered tribe. When a big tribe conquers a smaller one, they named the chief of the other one as is the original, either the original chief of the tribe or they assign the chief to them as Xihou. And one of the Xihou is Kushana, the Guishuang, and they established the Kushan Empire. Language and the scripts in Bactria and Gandhara before the arrival of the Yuezhi. So the great Yuezhi, we have the problem of the Kushan history from the beginning is the great Yuezhi did not write. Thus, we do not know what language they spoke. When they arrived at the Amud area, the Great Yuezhi was very possible already a confederation of multiple tribes. In other words, several languages were spoken by different tribes. Now, who are in this confederation? There were Sakas, Parthians, could be included in the confederation. Both spoke languages belonging to Iranian system. Among the Indo-Europeans, they were on the Iranian side, not the Indian side. Bactria was the base of Hellenistic states in Central Asia and South Asia. So Greek language and the letters prevailed there for centuries. I would say even before Alexander's expedition, because quite some Greeks were employed in the Persian Empire, Amanid Empire, so there were Greeks around. The Persian Empire ruled the region from 6th to 4th century BCE. They brought in Aramaic language and script. That's another language element. The Persian Empire had their own official language carved on the stone. They call their language Aryan. They use cuneiform script to carve it. However, this language never prevailed in his empire because Persian Empire was a huge empire with many different languages, many different people. Meanwhile, the Bactrian language was a branch of Persian language of the Indo-European family. Then further east and south, Gandharian and Magadhi were the Prakrit of South Asia, the Prakrit of South Asia, so the Indic side of the language system. So let's look at the distribution of language and the script in the Kushan Empire. When you look at all the inscriptions around, the Greek letters were widely used for writing Greek, Bactrian, Prakrit languages. All the language for a while, they will use the Greek letters to write. Kharoshthi script expressed Bactrian and various Prakrits. Then the Brahmi script was used for Prakrits and the Buddhist Sanskrit. This is very, you look at it very confusing, but when you look at categorize you realize the all kind of different scripts using on different languages. Now, Greek letters were scribed on at least one side of the coins that issued through the Kushan dynasty. So all the way down to the end of Kushan dynasty, one side, most of the coins, one side of them were in Greek letters. I have to revise this something a little bit now, because we realize in Messianic, they may find these copper coins, not really use one side of the Greek letters, but for silver, golden coins, Greek letters have always been there. Buddhist monks came from all over the places, could have spoken all the above languages. And for instance, a Buddhist scholar from the Kushan Empire, who worked and spread Buddhism in the later Han capital Luoyang in the second century CE, second century CE. His name is Zhi Qian. Why we know he's from the Kushan? Because Chinese from the beginning to end called the Kushan as Da Yue Zhi. So they use the Zhi as the surname of someone from the Kushan territory. So Zhi Qian was a very learned Buddhist scholar in Luoyang, and he, in many of other feats, he was known for speaking 6 languages. 说6国语 in Luoyang. He's tall and thin, dark skin and yellow eyes, but so famous in his learning, including 6 languages. So the Buddhist monks are famous for that. And meanwhile, in addition to the above language I mentioned, there was a so-called unknown language in unknown script. They are the most discovered unknown language in unknown script concentrate around the tent camp area from the right bank of the Amud area, except for the marked ones. So I don't think I will read all of this. You recorded, you can look up. And what I mean is, if you look at this map, this is Amud area. And here, this region is what I say is camp area. So when nomads migrate to here, get ready to invade Bactria, they set up their camps here. So this unknown language, they so far discovered, all mostly, except the few yellow ones, and some already crossed the river to the Afghanistan. One is very far away to the east, around the Isak Lake, which was Central Asia, on the Central Asian steppe. There are more more on this unknown language. So what is unknown language? According to the Hungarian linguist and archaeologist, he said that this script was revised Kharoshthi. Its language was similar to Khotanese Shaka. So we know Shaka was the nomads. It's the way a portion called horse-riding nomads, Shaka, and the Greeks called them Scythians, and Chinese call them Sai. So this is a big nomadic group, very diverse across all Central Asia, all the way to West Asia steppe. And so those are some other discovery of the Shaka language, this unknown language. Here, we see those people. I have to say some. This Hamata deciphered one of this language, this inscription in the unknown language. This is 9 lines of inscription deciphered using Kharoshthi script, revised Kharoshthi script, and Cantonese Saka. According to this, his explanation is that Great Tattva, the Kushan, crossed the high mountains, inspected Kapisa, defeated Sanas, hosting a feast to celebrate the victory. The reading could be verified by the same as inscription in Bactria from the same site. There's another inscription written in Bactrian language. So the Katvisa should be Vima Katvasis. It's in Chinese, Yan Gao Zhen. Therefore, the unknown language was probably the southern branch of Saka. We know Sakas were horse-riding nomads, but when you talk about the Khotanese Saka, Khotan was oasis, big oasis. So it's the Saka who settled there. They use this Khotanese Saka. So there is a guess. We can guess. Will this be the language of the Great Yuezhi? Because we know Yuezhi didn't have a language. But when they were in this area, the camp places, could this be the language? The writing system, they didn't have a writing. They had a language. Sorry, we just don't know their language, but they didn't have the writing. So they could be the language of the Yuezhi written in this revised Kharoshthi. So how do we know that? There is on the camp area, there was a site called Kachayan on the right side of Amudarya, was the headquarters of nomadic state on the steppe. So when the steppe gather together, they have a camp settlements, and sometimes in recent decades, people notice they are not just roam around, have no stable. When they settle in some, they have a headquarters. And this look like a palace or temple of the ruling family, displayed a majestic scene. The inscriptions on potsherd and tails have several languages, including the unknown Saka language. So this is reconstruction. Actually, this site was excavated during the Soviet Union period. They do have quite a comprehensive publication of the, but it's in Russian, and the another problem is the photograph all black and white. But this is actually a very colorful palace. As I will show later. And so we see on the step one of this place surrounded by the camps of the nomads. There is a kind of temple, but mostly it's not the gods, but the chiefs of the people, of the nomads. And this is another way to reconstruct it. You can see there is the central panel showing the chiefs. That this is a battle scene. That's another, there's a goddess here. So let's see one by one. And the central panel is very interesting. You look at this guy in the middle. He wear this short robe, trousers, and with the mace, a symbol of the chief. And the others, male ones, clothes were similar, but not the same. But the women all wear kind of a Greek style. There are spots here. If we consider this one the chief, he could be the Sakas, because we know Sakas have this pointed head. And the other one is this chief just sit here by himself. They are all male, but there is a goddess on a horse chariot. And they are, you can tell they are all from the steppe. They wear this kind of outfit fitting for horse riding. But on the other hand, they are not the same. And hairdress and headgear and the outfit are not exactly the same. And this one holding armor as a trophy, we are not sure, but it could be a trophy of the enemy they defeated. And there are some of the more, this is the real stuff. It's not the reconstruction. And we can see even now it's very colorful. And artistically, I'm not an art historian. I don't make judgment, but for me, it's very much like a realistic sculpture of Hellenistic style. This this picture actually is from the UNESCO compilation of Central Asian history, and because it's so impressive, this Shaka chief's image here. And this one is the goddess. Is also very colorful and interesting. And then we look at this guy. Can you see the difference? and this guy and this guy. We don't judge their physical looking, but using their hair, their headgear. I say headgear. It's their symbol of their status and identity, and you can easily tell they belong to different group of the federation. And this one too. And pardon me? You have a question? Anyway, so that there is a band on the head. And if you look at it from side, this is not just a casual band. It's a band on the head for a long time. It's kind of disformed the head in a way. So it's part of their identity. And here this guy is even more obvious. And this guy is from the large picture of this one who holds armor. This is the original one. And his face and his head on the side is the same as this one. It's, only this one is colored and this one is black and white. So this prince warrior, who was he? And in the coins, after those people cross the river on the Kushan side, one type of the coins is like that. One side is the face, the head of the king with this headband. And this one have a good, quite a good inscription, well-preserved inscription. And it says tyrant, hero, Sanab, Kushan. So this is the first set of coins. We can be sure the chief of the Kushan, the people call them Kushan, looks like that. We cannot say this one is this guy, but we can say the Kushans, the Kushan, they call them Kushan. He was a tyrant. He borrowed the great word, tyrant. Means he was a chief. And the hero is a hero here is he borrowed from the steppe language. It's also a chief. But they are Kushans. So in this way, we can be pretty sure among the chiefs here, this should be Kushans. And the Yuezhi chief should be something like that. But this is not one chief. We can say this all present here, they are all some kind of chiefs in this confederation. So we see the confederation of multiple ethnic communities. So when the great Yuezhi pitched the tents on the right bank of the Amur area, they were a confederation of communities of different languages and cultures. The unknown Saka language was probably originated from Central Asia. They became the 10th language of the area on the right side of the Amur area. So the language entered the Bactria following the conquest of Kushan, then gradually disappeared because those people learn new languages. But when they were tent people on the right side of the armed area, this could be a somehow shared language among the the, the nomads gathered there. And the Kushan coins inherited the Hellenistic tradition of making coins. The head of the ruler is on the face with Greek legend, images of various gods or goddesses. They could be Greek, Mesopotamia, Zoroastrian, Brahmanical on the back of the coins. The legend in Greek and Kharoshthi. The Shakas, Parthians, who came earlier or later, all follow the Hellenistic tradition in casting coins. The various deities on Kushan coins make it hard to judge the religious inclination of the Kushan kings. So we cannot say which Kushan kings believe which religion, because it's sort of arbitrary adopted all the deities. So in my opinion, assign who was the patron religion of the Kushan is kind of difficult. So I would say how the Kushans start to settle down to build cities. The tent cities evolved into Kushan centers of agricultural commercial cities. The beginning, the ancestor worship temples, fortified castles, they locate the distance from urban centers. The cities of industry and commerce were hubs of the Silk Road trade. Buddhist institutions integrated into the commercial world. So there's a process. We know, in spite of the fact that we don't know that much about the Kushans, we know in this period for archaeologists that there was unprecedented urbanization of the area, the Gandhara, even the Middle Ganges, and the Bactria and Central Asia. In Bactria, copper mining, quarry architecture, and stone carvings of statues, including dynastic and Buddhist. The kings all have their statue covered. Gandhara, grape, wine production, and distillation associated with Buddhist shrines, one of the important industry. On the Gangetic plain, architecture, quarry, and architecture, agriculture, quarry, and architecture, and the stone carvings of statues, both dynastic and Buddhist. The development of the architecture and the sculptural art in Kushan cities. We see royal temples, and so far very well excavated, defined are several of them is Sukhothai, Robataka in Afghanistan, Mat in near Mathura. They are all outside urban settings, not far, but outside urban settings. Cities inherited from the time of Persian occupation and Indo-Greek cities like Taxila, Pushkalavati, Kapisa. Buddhist institution existed from previous period and flourished under the Kushans. City inherited from the earlier Indian town, Mathura, Buddhist institution developed and surpassed those of Jain cults of Yakshas, Nagas. Let's first look at the Sukhothai. Sukhothai is a castle of Kushan royal temples. There's an inscription in unknown Saka language, which was a contract of property distribution. And there are 3 inscriptions in Greek letters of Bactria. It's about construction and maintenance of water canal and the castle and the reigns of Vima Cadavasis and Kanishka. So this site is very Sukhothai, very impressive. Of course, no longer it's not been reconstructed. It's good in a way, but we can imagine all the steps leading to the hilltop, and it's quite a big temple here. And this is the plan. We can see there are the walls built to protect this castle, and now it's the temple. We don't know whether there are still used to be some walls to surround this temple, but this is a huge, very dominating building structure on the hilltop in the Sukhothai. And this is the Kanishka statue recovered because it's no longer there, but only have a lower part. But we can still see very clearly. This is, embellished the step style with the boots, trousers, and the sword. And in a near, not too far away place, Robata, this is a very famous inscription of Kanishka, his edict. I am not go through this, but we have one thing to remind you. This edict, at the beginning, the sentence, this edict is translated from Greek Yuna to Aryan, which means Bactria, because Iranian language, Persian language called themselves Aryan. And so the Greek is called Yuna. Yamana or Yuna is from the word Ionia. So from this sentence, we can assume the original one is totally in Greek letter, and in Greek language. So the language using here, the edict, the original, was carved by, or scribed, composed by a Greek speaker, and written down and carved, but then translate into Aryan, the Bactrian language, or also by scribe who know the letter and know the language. This make sure this is a very important point for my talking here. Now this is the Kanishka in Mat, another the family temple of the Kushans, and you can see by and large, not that embellished, but it's still the same Kanishka with the boots and the 2 feet point outside. It's typical horse riding people's posture. They spend the time on the horseback. They when they stand, it's like that, and with the boots and the sword here. But I think the upper body is naked. It's too hot here. And this now is in Brahmi letter writing in Maharaja, Raja Di Raja, Deva Putra Kanishka. It's the Kanishka king of kings, great king of kings, son of the god. Another one, this is the Mima Maharaja Raja Di Raja Deva Putra Kushan Putra Sahi Mima Taksama Mima Taktu. This is mud. And then those are the temples, city temple, family temples. We assume they are not totally isolated from the people. So around this place, there should be the settlements of the Kushans at least. So the Kushan cities developed on the both sides of Amudarya, and they developed from the Hellenistic cities. Termens, also called Termit, could be the administrative center of Kushan Bactria. So once they establish around the Amudarya, we go back this map here, Termens. When they crossed the river, but they still around here, Termens was the center. And Termens, we can see this is a city, citadel, and they city the citadel, but there are a couple of important sites. This Qingji's Taipei, Kara Taipei, and Fayaz Taipei. Those two are both monastic sites. Again, they are not inside the city here, outside city. So but the Buddhist monasteries spread on both sides of Amudarya. Near Termens, there were two monasteries, the Kara Tape and the Fajit's Tape. Both were Mahasangika. For those who not familiar with Buddhism, Mahasangika is not Mahayana. Mahasangika is the original Buddhist, one of the branch, because the older, after Buddha's nirvana, the Sangha divided between the Theravada, the people, elders who stand in a higher ground when they have meeting. And the Mahasangika is the more regular monks surrounding them. So Mahasangika is not equal to Mahayana. But they are probably in the transition. Excavated pottery inscription revealed that monks used several languages. So there were pots. The pots means for the monks to deposit their private properties. Every pots have their name and some contents there. So we know on the pots there are writing in different languages. There is a Gandhari in Kharoshthi script. There is a rough Sanskrit in Brahmi, and the Bactrian in Greek letters, and they're Greek, and also the undeciphered script languages. So it's obvious the monks who originally had different languages resided in the same monastery. So this is the place they could learn from each other, converse with each other. and try to create a common language so they can efficiently communicate among themselves and to others, their audience. Kushan cities in the river to India, I have named the Bactria. In Bactria, there are termites and Bagra. I think now everybody familiar with, because this is American military base there. But now Americans left. But at ancient time is Kapisi. It's very common name in the Indian literature. Kapisi is the city in the northwest. And in Gandhara, there is a very important city called Pushkalavati. It's a lotus city, the Pushkalavati. And the Pura is Pashava. And there's a Taxila. In the Swat Valley, there's Barakat. And in North India plain, again, is Mathura. Those are the things we can discuss a little bit in detail. There are some in Gadara. One of the monastery was named Sangha Chatdichi, and which could mean monks came from 4 directions. So for 4 directions means they came from everywhere. It's again an environment of multiple languages. Another language we can, evidence we can talk about is from the settlements. Okay. Where are we? Deciphering of Kharoshthi fragments of birch bark scrolls, probably from Hada nearby, in eastern Afghanistan. They are dated to the 4th century CE. There are 6 fragments in Brahmi scripts and Sanskrit language, and unidentified medical texts. In one of the fragment 6, according to their category, and these monks, so the monks in that location must have read the medical text written in Sanskrit. So Sanskrit in Brahmi script in the time of 4th century CE was located in a Buddhist monastery. This is a very interesting picture. This is the Pushkalavati. The last British archaeologist worked in the region, Mortimer Wheeler. When he excavated Charasada, his main site was the Balahisa. It's a huge mound. But when he almost finished, he noticed this site a lot of things, but he had no time to do it. So he called the Pakistan Air Force to take a picture for him. And you can see here, this is urban side. This is a low side, not that clear, but here, the upper or citadel, whatever. You can see lines of the cities, the houses, very well planned on both sides. But in the center, this is a Buddhist stupa. So this Buddhist stupa is in the center of the whole settlement, the urban side, and control this place. Here is the more focused on this part. It's even more clear. This Buddhist stupa is in the center. This is very precious picture because this site things have been, excavated. So this view is destroyed. The overall view of this site is destroyed. Here, the Ahmad Hassan Dani, the Pakistan archaeologist, he did excavation of this site called Shikandari. And in this excavation, he discovered a very wholesome household. It's called House of Nardak. And it turns out this household is generations of important Buddhist patrons or Buddhists. And it's not a temple. It's not a monasteries, but the wholesale is about the Buddhists. But meanwhile, in this side, they discover a lot of wine, wine making in the locust city. The mansion of the Buddhist patron, Nardaka House, was a site of wine making and selling. Grape wine processed sale were under the royal patronage because the jar of the wine was stamped with Kushan Tonga. Tonga is a kind of stamp developed from the steppe. When the nomads herd their animals, they have to put some hot iron symbol on the skin of their horse, their cows, so they can identify their own animals. So 5 generations of Buddhist patrons from the Hellenistic time to the Kushan time live there. And, patronize, support Buddhism, meanwhile selling, making wine for the under the Kushan government monopoly for the Kushan government. And Taxila, we see this Taxila, we know there are 3 months. Beer month is earlier for the Persian period and the Mauryan period. This is for the Hellenistic and go to the Kushan period. And again, this excavation for all the faults people blame on the Marshall, and it's really large scale horizontal excavation. And it's very clear this regional D is a Buddhist temple, big courtyard, and have a lot of sculptures, things there. And but in the area C, he found a lot of wine making, distillation, apparatus. Yeah. The reconstruction is this. When you heat up the big jar with wine, and they cold here with cold water condensed here. So you have high content alcohol made from wine. And this is called the receiver and also the jar. And those jars were in the same capacity, same content with Kushan symbol. So again, these Buddhists were very much engaged in the wine making. And here we can see Buddhists gained urban identity. early Buddhism were rather outside the real politics, outside the urban center. But in the 2nd century CE, under the Kushans, cities such as Taxila in Gandhara, Barakot in Swat Valley, Buddhist monastery dominate urban scene. What is the things forces move Buddhist institution? Buddhist monks knew languages. They knew local language, foreign language. Another thing is they start to have Sanskrit. And another thing is Buddhist art propagated the religious doctrines. So they say perhaps the flourishing of Gandharan art, this is by the scholar Pier Francesco Galleri. I don't know how to speak the name very well, but he said that perhaps the flourishing of Gandhara art was not the result of Buddhist expansion, but one of the means through which Buddhists expanded. A strong visual propaganda based on powerful economic support that transformed the monasteries from isolated presence in Hindu country into a main religious centers. And so languages in Buddhist monasteries, as monks came from far and near, they spoke various languages. Monks recorded information in their local languages. Monks learned several languages, became media of communication, played the role of interpreter. Monasteries express stories of Buddha and his teachings through artistic sculptures, and there are also drama performance brought Buddha's image on the stage in art form. Buddhist language evolved into Sanskrit. And this is done by a very outstanding scholar, the Richard Selman. He said the bulk of Sanskritization of Buddhist literature took place under the Kushanas. So Buddhist literature become Sanskrit was under the Kushans. We know in this period a very famous Buddhist scholar, poet, Ashvaghosha, who wrote the earliest Sanskrit Buddhist drama and poem. First is the Buddha Charita. It's about the life story of the Buddha. Another one is Sandarananda was a drama. And his drama obviously prevailed in Buddhist society for a long time, all the way to Central Asia at least, and later to China. But the one of the manuscript of Ashvaghosha's drama was discovered in Khotan in Central Asia. It's very amazing evidence. And we also see some early Buddhist literature like Jataka became Sanskritized. The Jataka Mala, Jataka has hundreds of stories, but they were in Pali or in early Magadhi or other languages. But the Jataka Mala is selected 36 of them into Sanskrit. So this become a code for the missionary. They can use this Sanskritized Jataka Mala as the script for Buddhist art painting. And we also know some other Sanskrit literature, like Ashoka Vadana. We know Ashoka left his edicts, which is based about his time. His wish, his command to his people in different languages, in different Prakrit, and in Greek and in Aramaic. But here we have Ashoka Vadana, make Ashoka's life in Sanskrit. And so the preachers can use this version to tell the story of Ashoka. And then we have classical Buddhist Sanskrit texts, Sadharma Pundarika and Sukava Devayuha. And those are about the Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Amitabha. And this Sanskritization, even among Buddhists, the Sanskrit is kind of a process. For instance, the Mahavastu they call it more hybrid Sanskrit. Lalita Vishtara is incomplete Sanskritization from Middle Indic. The scholar Bokos say Ashwagosha and Jatakamala Brahmanize Buddha's environment. So when they tell Buddha's story, they use all this imagery of Brahmanical literature. And meanwhile, we know Buddhist monasteries need to solicit patronage from the kings. And in the Kushans occupy northwest of India, but in the west coast, the Kshatrapa, which could also be one of this confederation, the Shakas, Sanskritized into Kshatrapa. This king, Rudradama, was the first king who wrote in Sanskrit and bragged his qualification of Kshatriya. Its time is 150 CE. It's contemporary with the Kushans. So Buddhist Sanskrit formed in a multiple language environment. In a way, because there are so many different languages, people need a common language. The Buddhists need to adopt a standardized language. And another thing to get their idea across is the drama and the mudra. This communication through image. Buddhist monasteries set the stage. Performance and artworks transfer the message. Mudra developed as a sign language. Drama was associated with Hellenistic Dionysiac tradition and winemaking. I just get very I just get this online. If you get hit some Gandharan art, you certainly get this. And here we see Buddha in the center, and this side is Avalokiteshvara, and this one is Maitreya. They are both bodhisattvas, and this one is a Buddhist monk, and this one is a Kushan follower. And what we see here, their mudra, all this abhaya, is no fear. The deities show don't fear, and the others, just show their piety. And meanwhile, we have a numerous image of Dionysic scene. Here, it's on the Buddhist, one of the Buddhist monasteries, stupas. It's in Hada. This jar of wine, and the jar of wine, music, music. And this scholar, Harry Falk, also had an important article say, making wine in Gandhara under Buddhist monastic supervision. So this is again from a monastery, from a stupa. And this is the one making scene. This is a filter of the juice here. And this guy is carrying a big animal skin bag with the wine inside. And this is a wine jar and wine leaves. This one is very it's a series, but we don't have the whole series. It's the one from the Buddhist, the stupa stabilizer in Swan Valley. And you can see the panel on the stage. Those people all from the steppe with trousers and boots and play lira and with the hats of the nomads and the xylophone, drum, and singing. This is music called by the nomads, nomadic player. And here is a drinking scene, but also some music. And both women and men were this again carrying a big animal skin. This is the container for wine on for the horse riding people. Here is again someone look like a Gandharan Buddhist outfit with carry grape and singing, making music. But most of them people don't dress too much. But this panel show people are very pious. Everybody appropriately dressed, and hold a lotus flower and show they're worshiping something. But again, this one is music, but rarely serious kind of posture, music, and only one hold the drink. Okay, and I think I finish my presentation here. And how should I stop sharing or somehow?
Yeah, maybe you can end the screen share.
Oh, I think you can leave it up. Thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. I have a bunch of questions, and if anyone else has questions they want to contribute. Oh, sorry.
Should I how much? Should I don't know. Let me make it smaller, okay? So I can see you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to use the hand raising feature, or if they want to post questions in the chat, they're very welcome to, and we can come to all of them. But Deven, perhaps you want to start us off.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Liu. As always, you always give us more to think about and discuss than there will ever be time for. And I do want maybe people in the audience, including you, Cass, would be interested in asking Professor Liu more specific questions and technical questions. I thought I would just maybe frame the discussion in such a, in a way that maybe will draw in everybody's attention. It's a magisterial look at this, such an important period, this 4 centuries that we can identify as the Kushan that Professor Liu has brought us. And, the overlaps are amazing with the Hellenistic and, of course, the late Maurya and everything that's happening all over India and Central Asia and then in northwestern China. And Professor Liu does an amazing job in, perhaps drawing our attention to a feature of all of these cultures that perhaps sets the tone for this, what follows. And that is this kind of immense heterogeneity of not only the different types of people that are coming through, and I think you brought that to our attention with the languages, the multilingualism, but also all these technologies, the script infrastructure that is being brought from different realms, from the Near East, and from the further Far East, if you will. Also, the technologies of economic technologies, coinage, the various types of assimilative processes that are involved, architectural and art. One of the things that I think you bring up very well is the fact that so much of the economic and cultural assimilation and expansion of this group of what can be qualified as Kushan is not merely aesthetic, right? The arts and the architectural spaces and the urban construction of these cultures, which are, as you say, citing another scholar, perhaps we're not really being shaped by previous cultural forces, but they were themselves shaping the cultures that follow and that were being produced, especially around Buddhism and all the other religious traditions that are floating around, Zoroastrianism, the Shaiva, the Kushan is very famously also has Shaiva iconographies and other sorts of things like that. And of course there is that major bridge between the Indian and the Chinese, these big two civilizational forces that we see being brought together with this kind of Central Asian. So my questions for you would be these are general questions, which I think before you answer them, maybe we'll take questions from everybody else so that everybody can participate a little bit in the conversation. But I would like to know something more about, in thinking about the significant ways in which the Kushan has shaped the sociolinguistics of drama, of scripts, of art motifs, and they've helped fill in the gaps. How do you see the Hellenistic and the Maurya? The Maurya, of course, and the Hellenistic have kind of cross-fertilized, but then how do you see the Kushan as really inheritors and reshapers of that whole world, from the Indo-Greek and the Central Asian and the South Asian, right? Because all the way as south as Sanchi, we have the Kushan, all the way in Madhya Pradesh, and then you have to the east, you have up to Kashi and other places, and then it's such a big space. So that's one question I'd like you to kind of address, and also maybe thinking about the as the urban centers go, but is there something about that Kushan pragmatism, if you will, that people speak of, this ability to manage these heterogeneous spaces? How does that, do you think, take us into what follows, what we know about Indian history for sure, but also for other regions, in terms of their kind of being a central force in thinking about culture and world history in a certain way that maybe distinguishes them, or at least helps us to make them, elevate them in some ways in that process. So that's it for me for now. Can I maybe I'll ask Cass to begin her question, then others can also maybe ask a few things.
Yeah, sure. Oh, so we've got one in the
And
chat
we have
as
some
well.
stuff in the chat as well.
Yeah, I mean, so coming at this from a kind of like philosophical, intellectual history perspective, I guess I would just be interested in asking, kind of given that you've really persuasively demonstrated this kind of huge level of interconnection between like the Greek and Buddhist traditions within Kushan culture, um, whether maybe this ought to encourage us to look kind of intellectually at how the kind of traditions of thought are connected, the way that like the philosophical traditions might be seen to share ideas kind of in light of that historical context, because I often feel that, at least in the study of like kind of Greek traditions of thought, this awareness of the kind of collision of different traditions is often lacking. Yes, that would be my question. Thank you.
Yeah, can I? Yeah, also the Buddhist and the Greek encounter happened before the Kushans. You know, Milinda Punk, the king Minanda of the Hellenistic king who sort of, he actually entered in South Asia and ruled for a while. It's not a long time, but long enough to have a conversation between the great king and the Buddhist sage Nagasena. And this is a rather theological text. If you are interested, you can read that. And it's about whether Buddha was deity, is a god, or he was not. And so the conversation is like Minanda asked, you know, if it's the conversation started with the Melinda said, you know, if you want to talk to me, and the Nagasena said, if you want to discuss as pundits, I will do it. If you discuss as a king and this, you know, subject, I won't do it. I said, let's discuss as pundits, you know, about the theory of the Buddhism. He said what the Buddha is God is the important thing. So this is a transition to Mahayana Buddhism. And because for Greeks, supernatural beings are embodied in the human form. And the gods were there. But for a long time, even for all the Sanchi, Balu, for all the early Buddhist stupas, there was no Buddha. Because the Buddha was not a god. He was only a teacher. He left to Nirvana. So what you need to do is to listen to his teaching. But here we have the Nagasena to justify the transition. The Minanda asked him, if you have if the God knows everything, how could he allow someone rebel against him? If he was kind of immune to any problem, how could he become sick? And all those discussions, Nagasena, of course, was very smart. He tried to, you know, explain all this. And finally, sort of convinced Minanda he was. So this text, Milinda Pong, was still not in Sanskrit yet. But we can see this encounter between Hellenistic Greek idea, philosophy, theology, or cosmology. It's encounter between this and the Buddhist cosmology. And yeah, Buddhists recognize there are a lot of gods. They don't deny that. There was India, they call the Saka. But but Buddha was not a god at the beginning. So this is very important point. So from a philosophical point of view, the encounter of the two ideas happened even, you know, before the Kushans coming. And so did I answer this question?
Yes, thank you, Professor Liu. You know, just to follow up on that, and before I turn to Himanshu to ask for him to ask his question, and everybody else can raise their hands as well, or just put something in the chat. I just wanted to follow up with this idea of the Buddhist and you mentioned the use of Sanskrit by citing something in the text message from Anne AG, who I think quite rightly points out that the hybrid, this Buddhist Sanskrit as it was being developed, you mentioned the Lalita Vistara and the other texts and also the inscriptions and the Jataka tales, a lot of that, of course, is very interesting because especially this, you mentioned in your article on the Kushanas about the Sariputra Prakarana from Ashwagosha, which was also an early kind of Buddhist drama, right? That we have fragments from Khotan you just mentioned, and it has Prakrits in it, the sociolinguistics and the dialect. So there is something there about Sanskrit and other languages kind of coming into the fore for a broader popular space. But I think as Anne writes, and I'll read her question, that Buddhist Sanskrit was used for several reasons, as you suggest, no doubt political, catering to rulers, etc. But the Sanskritizing of the popular material was not for the laity, but for the monks, for the teachers. And for Sanskrit itself was for the monks and this kind of, and new monk recruits, she writes, a lingua franca. So I'm wondering if you think about it from that point of view, then the Sanskrit is not so much being brought into, it's more sort of still localized, right? So this is the question, and I don't know how you want to address it.
Sanskrit language, in a way, is less localized. Only spoken by monks or Brahmins. So that is very important point is to, if you want to, I mentioned the Zhiqian who was in Luoyang in the 2nd century, already spoke 6 languages. And when they go out of the home domain, go outside, they need some kind of unified language to get their idea across. So for the people of Central Asia and especially China, they have totally different language, different system. If you have several, for instance, how to say Buddha, you say Bo-tuo or there are several translations, the transliteration of the Buddha, only just for Buddha, the name of Buddha, in the early Buddhist Chinese translations. So for the missionary purpose, for the communication of monks of different location, they are in a system, they need to go far away. So they need this kind of unified language for them to translate into other languages to propagate to larger area. Not necessarily forced to the direct audience, like Buddha did. He refused to speak Sanskrit. He said he only speak the local language. People understand him. But for the people who go out for the area, the language is so different. They have to have some unified message. I think that's the Sanskrit can go a long distance, only limited to few people. That's my point.
Thank you. Himanshu and then Shanglu.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Liu. I was wondering that it has basically left me with more complexity around the identity of whatever was already a multilinguistic community around that period of time. My question is precisely about the way we read philosophical texts around this period. For example, the idea of the story of Nagasena, and then we have Buddha in this idea of Panchashila, denying people to consume alcohol, or there is no mention of even music or enjoyment in these sense of the term. Now it's certainly very surprising to find that the whole city is that there is laity, there are monks, there is wine distilleries, and the whole city is around these Buddhists who knew different languages. It seems like, I don't know how would we imagine reading these texts with this kind of historical information. yeah, it's like right now I'm not able to make sense of it, but it's yeah, Professor Deven also.
Yeah,
please chime
I
in.
think the question you're asking is how Buddhist was the Buddhism of the Kushanas, right?
Certainly, yeah, and
Because the Panchashi, the idea of having a viticulture of winemaking and all of those things, how do historians speak to that aspect?
yeah, and related to that, when we talk about, for example, South Asia or India, if the conversation about art, aesthetics, music starts from Bharata or the Sanskrit structure mainly. There's no mention of the Buddhist literature in that sense. But here we see that even these statues, we can see maybe the same person constructed them. You see the plaques, people standing in the similar structure in the Buddhist statues and in the Roman Greek statues, not Roman, for example. So yeah, how would you like to respond to that?
Can you, Devin, can you explain a little bit more? I don't quite grasp.
Well, I think the question that Himanshu was asking is that, you know, we in what you described in terms of the art friezes and the data we can extract from the material culture, which includes you know, winemaking and all sorts of what we might think of as you know, the monasteries and the monks and Buddhists being involved in such processes. And this might be beyond the Kushanas, it might be a broader culture about Buddhist material culture. But how do historians understand the inflection of Buddhism as part of this kingdom or this empire with these kinds of practices and material elements? You understand, like the idea that like, you know, you're not supposed to make wine, you know,
yeah, so it's kind of surprise to see. Yeah, that is because in a way, you know, because modern politics separate separate the Kushans has been divided into different modern nations. So when the Soviet Union first discovered some of the sites, they made a claim. People didn't pay much attention. They had some meetings, and but people didn't pay a lot of attention. Like this multiple linguist thing is article presented by Soviet scholar in Tokyo in a Japanese conference of Buddhists, and I don't even have the formal publication, but Romila, my mentor Romila Tattva, won the conference. Some people handed to her this quite essential presentation articles, and she just gave it to me. She said, you may have a use. And so I look at it, and for years I remember it. Then, you know, when I look at this archaeological reports, I thought, okay, this must be something there. And then I realized there could be a lot of things, but still it's difficult to do. But on the other hand, one important, even with those political chaos, in those years, they covered the big copper mine, Mas Anus, and there are, you know, the important inscriptions came out. So we start to realize there must have been a lot of things there. And another thing I would say, how can Buddhism become like that? I would say, in a way, it's not my bold claim, is that Buddhism control the Kushans. You know, Kushan kings may worship this king worship this god, that king worship that god, or they worship every god they may. But on the other hand, Kushans, the Buddhist monastery, they control the communication. They control the another thing about it. they are the witness of making contracts. They are the one who probably money changer. We don't know exactly, but could be. And another thing is they control the industry. They control the copper mine. You know, as Manak is totally controlled by Buddhist monasteries, circular around the sites. And in the urban center, the winemaking. And they even created some texts. My friend Pia Brancatillo, we wrote an article about dynastic tradition. And Pia got some texts, even, you know, Mahayana Buddhist texts. Buddha tried to explain to people, because there was no wine, no grape in the lower Ganges when Buddha was started. But here we do have it. You have the wine imported from the Roman East, and we have the wine made locally with this kind of facilities. And so they found Buddhist text, Mahayana Buddhist text, saying Buddha explained to people what is the juice of this grape, how can you drink it? He didn't say you ferment it into wine, but you are allowed to drink it. And so, you know, so that's why Harry Falk found all these sculptures. He said making wine under monastic supervision, and that's real, because if the jars all have the Kushan Kanga, the symbol on the jar, is actually the Buddhist these people perform the wine trading, alcohol trading monopoly for the Kushan kingdom. So their power was huge. And so their population, you know, their capability of work as government facilities, as agent is very large, because we do not discover Kushan Empire, the palace, do we? There is no, so far, even in Taxila is so, and in Pushkalavati, the whole site is quite clear. It was the first Gandharan set. Then they moved to Purushapura, Pashava. Even there is no discovery of their palace. But we have the Buddhist sites.
Before we go any further, Himanshu and Cass, can you give us an idea of how long you expect the session to last, so we can take questions in a way that's efficient?
Yeah, actually it was 8:30, but let's go, which means that 10 more minutes. 8:40.
We have 10 more minutes.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay. Professor Liu, then may I ask somebody who has their hand up already? They asked the question, and then also we have a few people in the chat who might want to weigh in a little, and others, please do weigh in, and maybe we can have you address the responses together, so we can have some more. Is that okay, Himanshu?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Or if there are still questions, they can send us email. We can try to send forward.
Yes, go ahead. Shanglu.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thank you for your speech. And my question is about the language and the society in Kushan Empire. So, as we can see, there are so many languages and societies and so many religions in the Central Asia under the reign of the Kushan kings. All of them gathered there around the Amudarya and the Hindu Kush, produced a flourishing world culture. And this culture was mainly developed around Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism. It spread within this context from South Asia to Central Asia and to East Asia. Yeah. Meanwhile, Sanskrit was considered the main language and the sacred language of Buddhism, spreading along Silk Road, breaking those language barriers. It's really funny, in China, many Buddhists, many believers, they believe Sanskrit as the original and the primary language of Buddhism. And they really work hard in learning Sanskrit even nowadays. It's interesting. So I want to figure out to what extent does language affect society or religion? That language is not as visual as wall paintings and sculptures. So what are the forms of interaction between language and religion? I think someone can explain it in linguistics and social history. So I hope I made myself clear.
Yeah, let me try. I think that is true. Sanskrit is considered the day Buddhist language in China. And I think it happened here in the Kushan because here people try to struggle to get unified language to express their idea. So the major, Ashwagosha's Buddha Charita and Saddharma Pundarita were among the first batch of Buddhist texts translated into Chinese by Kumara Jiva. So that's in the 3rd, 4th century already. So it took time for the Sanskrit language to become really formalized. Before that, like people like Zhi Qian, they know so many languages, but they can only have a few piecemeal information about the Buddha, about Buddhism, get into the Chinese followers. So their followers very limited, mostly just among their community was among the Kushans and the Central Asians. But once the Sanskrit literature translated into a formal Buddhist text, and the monastic settings appeared, kings were converted, Buddhism spread very fast in China. So that's my explanation. Do I answer the question?
Thank you. I think this is a follow-up, but I think Harshdeep, would you like to ask your question yourself, Harshdeep, or shall I read it?
You may read it. I don't mind it.
Fine. Well, the question is, Professor Liu, that it's about a religion in in devotional practices well, I'll just read it. How did how did the Kushan Empire's balancing of unity and diversity affect the individual's experience of the divine, and how did this legacy persist in successor states of devotional practices? So is there a connection that you can draw from the evidence between Kushan religious life and how it may have influenced later developments?
In India or in Central Asia or in China?
I'm
Central Asia,
yes.
particularly. Yeah.
Yeah. In Central Asia, you mean? Or yeah.
Yes, Professor. Central Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Kushan shaped the Buddhism spread out of India. Yeah, because you have this the Buddha Charita, and so Buddha was the prince, and the reality of the life was revealed by gods. And he saw all of this story, and then this image spread to China, Central Asia, China, Japan, Korea, but in the southern part was still, early Buddhism. They went through Sri Lanka to other Southeast Asia, but for the northwest and all the way to China, Kushan Buddhism defined the Buddhism Chinese people believe in. They worship the Buddha's image. They worship the Avalokiteshvara and Maitreya, Amitabha. To nowadays, no matter you're Buddhist or not, when you die, the Nama Amitabha is still ring. They use some recording stuff in morgue for that in China and also in Japan. This is the Buddhism go out of. So that's, yeah, the Kushan Buddhism defined the very Buddhism the whole world normally recognize.
Thank you, Professor.
So it's a transcend language, and but use art form.
Yeah. Shall we conclude it then? I guess. Yeah. Maybe I'll just take a few minutes to thank or a few those who joined us, and special thanks to Professor Liu and Professor Deven for really keeping us there and giving us interesting information also. So this was the first lecture in a series which we are planning, Let's Talk Tattva and Oxford Public Philosophy Journal. These are two student-run independent initiatives exploring philosophy through its diversities. So we named the series as Understanding the Epochs of Asian Lives. It's a broad and multi-series philosophical project by a team. I don't know how far we will be able to realize it, but we are trying to understand different aspects of what constitutes Asia, or let me say Afro-Asia, Africa, North Africa and Asia, in terms of the philosophical appraisal of the thought and being, by which we mean the literature, the so-called canonical philosophy, but not only that, also the way they live their lives. So it strives to learn and acquaint how the 5 major geographical constituents of Asia, by which we mean Inner Asia, Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, developed their philosophical understanding and how it led to what ensued after each epoch in their lives. So the first series of project only focuses on the nature of being and thought before the 1st century CE and inquires into implications for later century. Now we are trying to understand because now, for example, in this session also we can see there are people from philosophy, languages, working on history, art, etc. So it's really a dynamic construct in that sense. We are trying to explore through lectures by scholars and professional scholars, of course, who can, through which we can deal in dialogue with and understand the complex structure of being and thought here. Right now, this series probably will focus only on the aspect in Central Asia, or which we call Inner Asia, till 1st century CE. Later, we may then expand it to further centuries, seeing how we can understand or draw implications towards the impact it leaves for each centuries later, because it's not easy to even conclude or say anything remarkable in just one go. Maybe it will take time. Yeah, and after that, I would like to thank, of course, CAS for connecting us with Professor Liu and Professor Deven, and the whole team, which comprises of Kauthar, who couldn't join us because of she's busy with the conference, Kavya and Ananya. I'm also there. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us.